The first order of business this morning, this is the annual meeting, which I will refer to as a business meeting to distinguish it from the rest of the things we're doing today and tomorrow and Tuesday, which are also called the annual meeting. This is the annual business meeting of the Council of Chapters and Regions. And I welcome you all. The first order of business is approval of the minutes of last year's annual meeting, which I hope is in your packet. Do you have it? Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Thank you. A second? Is there any discussion? I'm sure you've all read them all the way through, and you also remember what happened last year. All right. All those in favor of approving the minutes? Aye. Opposed? It's a unanimous vote. The next order of business is my remarks. And my remarks, this is my outgoing swan song this morning. So I just wanted to review a little bit of the history of the last few years. Briefly, I hope. As some of you are brand new at this. Some of you have been coming to annual meetings for many, many years, and some for fewer. In the old days, before when the UNA USA was still going strong, we had a biennial meeting of UNA USA and an annual meeting of it was then the Council of Chapters and Divisions. In the past several years, as UNA USA began to fade, we've developed an annual meeting of the Council of Chapters and Divisions, and in the new system, an annual meeting of UNA USA, the new UNA USA. In 2009, we almost didn't have an annual meeting, and I think it was the Council of Chapters and Divisions that insisted there had to be we had to have an annual meeting because that's what UNA USA did, and we wanted to make sure it continued to do it. And it was organized by the steering committee. More about that a little later. And it happened here in Washington, and it was a very good one. We did it largely ourselves with some help from the staff, but the staff really wasn't in a position to give much support. There wasn't much money from UNA USA to give support. The following year, 2010, was when we were in the middle of the transition. If it hadn't happened yet, Mike Beard, Peter Yo came and gave us a good pep talk as to why we should want to join with UNF. And I think we were all trying to be on our good behavior so they would really want us. And they did want us because we are the grassroots part of UNF, which they didn't have before. In 2011, we'd moved a long way. The agreement between the two organizations had been signed. The affiliation agreement had been formulated, and chapters were beginning to sign it. Patrick Madden had been on board for several months but was still learning about us. In 2011, all the chapter agreements I'm getting a little ahead. It was in 2011 that Patrick was on board for several months, and that the chapter affiliation agreements were beginning to be signed. And we approved, the steering committee and the annual meeting approved the documents that the steering committee had been working on all through to give us a standard operating procedures for the steering committee, and chapter handbook for chapters, and which had to be approved by this group, and all the other documents and underlying fundamental constitutional things that we needed to operate. But we still had the old membership staff who had served us well through the most recent years, Luba Gretchen and Roger Noakes. Well, we lost both of them in the late fall and winter, and we now have a very wonderful new staff who they've been on the job several months. And many of you have become acquainted with some of them. This is really the completion of the transition. I think that the melding of UNA into UNF is pretty much complete, and we're ready to move on and do the job, the mission that is our mission, which I can't read because it's not in front of me, and I don't have it memorized, although I think that's one of my ambitions. It was well stated, if I can recall it yesterday, the idea of informing, what was it?
Inspiring.
That's the last one.
Engaging.
They were 3 Ns, informing and involving and inspiring us and the world, the U.S., to recognize and understand the importance of the United Nations. That's really my remarks. And I want to move on now. I welcome you all. And I think it's going to be a great annual meeting. This is for all of you who come and inspire us. And Patrick, I'll turn it to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 2012 annual meeting of UNA USA. Pleased to welcome you to Washington. You're fortunate enough to be a couple layers down underground. As many of you know, Washington was built on a swamp, and it will feel swampy outside today. It's going to be in the upper 90s. Luckily, tomorrow it'll be a little bit cooler, but it's the old Washington weather, summer weather, giving you a good welcome here. So I'm going to take a few minutes here to talk about what the organization has done over the last 9 to 12 months, and then open it up to comment and questions about UNA USA. I think we all know of the recent polling. Over 85% of Americans recently polled say they support the idea of the UN, and I'm pleased to say 100% of the people in this room support the UN. And we're glad we're together to talk about that, because the UN remains timely and relevant, and we need voices across America talking about the UN in their communities, both to others who may agree or disagree with you, but also to elected officials who obviously hold the purse strings to our engagement with the UN. So let us talk about a little bit about some of our successes here over the last year. At this moment, we have 110 chapters and divisions and nearly 12,000 members. Over the last year, we started 2 new chapters, and there are 8 more in development. So obviously, the interest in UNA USA, yes, I think that's worth a round of applause. Interest in new communities, it continues to grow. We held 3 regional meetings around the country, and we undertook a national research project to learn more about UNA USA. I've been on the job 15 months. I guess that counts as several months. 15 months to join you here for this 2nd annual meeting for myself. And part of my learning curve was to learn what people think about UNA. Obviously, the transition and the organization had seen a few bumps in the recent years. And so for me, it was important for us to go out to the members, to the chapter leaders, and those who were former members, and look and find out what is it they think of UNA USA, and how do we engage differently. So this slide, it's called a word cloud. We engaged over 3,000 people in this process over about a 6-month period. And one of the questions was, give us a word that describes UNA USA. And I think it gives you a good sense. The size of the word is relative to how often it was mentioned, but global, important, informative, necessary, international, and so forth. I will say there's a couple of negative words up there, which is not completely surprising, but luckily they're tiny. We know that the general feeling of the membership is positive. And in fact, when we asked them, how satisfied are you with your membership, almost 70% said they were satisfied with their membership. Now keep in mind, this is one snapshot in time, so those of you who are chapter leaders know we're always trying to keep our members satisfied. More encouraging to me was this factoid that came out of the research. We did talk to a number of people who had never been members or lapsed members and said, how likely are you to join UNA USA in the future? And about 50% of them said extremely likely or likely. That's very positive. So we don't have a huge group of people who are saying there's no way I would join this, but an interested group, they're curious, but the question is, how do we get them over the hump to join? So the research, which I have shared with the steering committee on a couple of occasions, the staff studies this almost daily. We really look at this to see what clues can we use when we talk about our recruitment and retention efforts and the kind of messaging we put on the website and so forth. We have also developed 10 toolkits and guides, and someone wanted me to demonstrate this. So everybody who's registered, in your blue packet, you have one of these thumb drives or flash drives, memory sticks. On this is a huge amount of information that's both accessible for chapter leaders and members. Everything from how to recruit people, to our logos, to banners, to advocacy how-tos, template PR, press releases, and so forth and so on. I give a thanks to Joe Catapano, who's our communications officer, currently behind the camera in the back, for all his hard work to pull all this together for you. You will also find this available on the website. So you have it here as an attendee, and over the next few weeks you'll see us roll this all out on the website for any member to access. We continue to do the national conference calls. One of the things UNA does for its members is provide access to the UN in ways other organizations do not. And so one of the ways we do that is through a monthly conference call with officials from the UN. This is a chance for members to dial in for free and listen to what's happening on the ground with the UN, ask questions, and for those who can't make the calls, we make the phone calls available online afterwards through a WAV file, a sound file, as well as the transcript. So you can access those. So we encourage you to let your members know about these phone calls. This year, one of the things we're trying to do is increase how we engage members. And we're encouraging chapters to think of new ways of engaging members, but also UNA USA is encouraging that. And we have done that through what's called an affinity group. These are self-forming groups of members within the membership. So for a while, and again, I've only been here 15 months, but since early on in my tenure, I heard this drumbeat. There was a group of members who were interested in looking at and talking about women's issues. So at 8 o'clock this morning, back in the corner, there was about 20 or 30 members of UNA Women, which is a new affinity group we launched on International Women's Day. And it's a chance for members of UNA USA who are interested in this particular issue to talk more about it, discuss it, access resources, events, and so forth. This is not something the staff is driving, but they actually have their own co-chairs. The co-chairs, I think, are here. There's one. Are both here? Yes, excellent. Are here. And so feel free, if you're interested over the course of the conference to learn more about what this group is doing and focusing on, then by all means, do that. We anticipate over the next 6 to 12 months for some more affinity groups to develop. We engage a lot of teachers, so we're thinking about UNA educators, young professionals. We used to have YPIC, so UNA young professionals. Any way that we can create what they call stickiness with the members is something we want to explore. Next up, the Council of Organizations. This is an organization that was started really with the beginning of the UN itself. It's been part of UNA USA for quite a while. Aaron and Carol are here somewhere. I saw Aaron, Carol, the co-chairs, who also serve on the steering committee, have, much like the organization over the last year, have been guiding the COO through its transition and formative connection to UNA and the UN Foundation. I think we will pass that mark today, and we're really looking to grow this part of UNA. This is a group of nonprofit organizations, national networks like National League women voters, and so on, who are connected and interested in the UN, and UNA is a place for them to come together. I won't do a complete sales job for them, but to say they're having a meeting later today. If you're interested, feel free to step into that meeting, because there is a part of that group that is developing area COOs. So if your chapter is interested in starting a mini council of organizations in your community, this could be a potential way to engage new partners in your community. At lunch today, you will receive a chapter annual report. Each of you, many of you I should say, helped put your chapter information into our system earlier this year as a way of capturing your work in 2011. And at lunch, you will receive a personalized copy of your annual report. And what that tells you is what you said, but also what's happening nationally. So you can look at your chapter and say, wow, we have this many members and the national average is X. Or we do Model UN and look at how many other chapters do Model UN. So you'll be able to look at it nationally, but also like-size organizations. So we have small, mid-size, and large chapters, and we've also provided you that data. So a chapter with, say, 45 members doesn't necessarily compare itself to a chapter with 800, but in fact, you can look at your chapter against others that are like size. This is the beginning. This is a little bit of a test, so we welcome your feedback on these annual reports. Obviously, it'll be a little more helpful once you see them. And tell us what you think we can do with this information that better helps you run your chapter easier and inform your boards of what's happening across the network. I think one of the things we're trying to show all of our chapter leaders is that you're not alone. We know when you go home, you fight the good fight, getting the UN's word out there, getting people to come to your events, tweeting, posting blogs, all of these things, and sometimes you feel lonely. Well, let's not forget there's a whole community here, a whole family within the UNA network that's here to support you, both at the staff level and fellow chapter leaders. One of our couple of big announcements for this conference is the announcement that UNA USA's historical documents, as we transitioned from the old UNA organization to the UN Foundation and our alliance, we had a treasure trove of historical information, and thanks to Ed Almendorf, the former head of the steering committee, who helped steward the old transition process, we were able to secure through our partnership with Seton Hall, the University Archives will keep UNA USA's historical documents preserved and accessible forever. So I want to say thank you to Ed and those of you who know the Seton Hall partnership. There's more information available, but as some of you might have over the years collected a few items of historical note in your garage or attic now, Seton Hall is now accepting other documentation. So this was the documents we had at the national office, but I know many of you have fantastic documents from either chapters or national meetings. Seton Hall is interested in building our archives, and so there's information about that at the registration desk. Many of you who were at the meeting last year remember I spoke about a small film called Decorum. Now, when I first came to UNA, I didn't come here as a Model UNer, but I quickly learned, I started in March, that we were in the midst of Model UN season. And UNA USA's Global Classrooms program, from essentially January, February, all the way till almost June, we're putting on conferences around the country. Thousands of students are engaged, thousands of teachers are engaged. And as I started to go to these conferences, I was inspired by what was happening here. Not just that this is the legacy of UNA USA, that we're bringing in the next generation of folks who will support and believe in the UN's work and its importance, but more so, we're giving them leadership skills, life skills in a curriculum and academic setting. And so last fall, we launched a 3-part documentary, an online documentary, so you can go to our website and watch all 3 episodes, and it takes you through this one school and their experience coming through one of our Model UN conferences. You hear from the teacher and his trials and tribulations of getting them ready. You hear from the students and their nervousness and excitement of going through the conference and so forth, and then really the celebration of how it's transformed their life. Well, thanks to our now part of the UN Foundation family, the Foundation's public affairs team, which is led by Aaron Sherinian, who I saw snuck in the back corner here, the Vice President of Communications, who you'll hear later today, and a lifetime member of UNA. UNA Pasadena, is that right? Right. Yes. The Public Affairs and the UN Foundation was donated a great amount of outdoor advertising. And you might be familiar with one of the locations we appeared, but first I want to show you this PSA that was shown in Times Square. Let's see, so there you go in Times Square. And let's see here. So in Times Square, in New York taxi cabs, as well as other places around the country. And so this is one of the great benefits of our connection to the UN Foundation is the reach of their communications, marketing, and public affairs area, which you'll hear more about from Aaron. It's not possible to steal his thunder, as you'll soon see. So what about the rest of our work throughout the year? UN Day, we had a very successful day, and UN Day, we had 136 events on UN Day last fall by 86 chapters. So you saw me earlier say we had over 100 chapters. We'd love for every chapter to be doing an event on UN Day. This particular photo was UNA USA on UN Day worked with the US Mission in New York to do a video conference that connected New York students with Miami students with students in Johannesburg. For a little briefing by the mission and a Q&A session. So it was our way of connecting people through the UN on UN Day. Later that month, we had the UNA Leadership Dinner. You see a picture of me with Asma Yanagir, who's the Human Rights Awardee, and Karen Rodriguez, who was the Youth Awardee this year. And then a few familiar faces to the right there, Ted Turner, the Prime Minister of Norway, the Secretary General, the CEO of ExxonMobil, and Senator Tim Wirth, the president of the UN Foundation. That gala, which is now a UN Foundation, UNA joint fundraising or event, should say joint event, all of the fundraising proceeds come to support UNA USA's budget, which this past fall was almost $1 million. So it was a great success, and we will, if you're interested, October 16th of this year in New York, we'll be doing it again. Here's an example from one of our chapter events at Human Rights Day, where we had 45 events by 40 chapters in December. And then in February, with the help of the New York Southern Division and UNA USA teamed up to bring together almost 700, I think, members and non-members to the General Assembly Hall for Members' Day at the UN, and our keynote speaker was Jeff Sachs. For International Women's Day, I convinced Senator Wirth to head down to Dallas, where we launched the affinity group UNA Women. Here next to me is Eleanor Roosevelt's granddaughter, who was there at the event and had a terrific conversation with her. They're still very active with UNA. Later in that month, we had a Mideast Regional here in DC, where Esther Brimmer, who you'll hear tomorrow at the State Department, the head of the International Organizations Department, the State Department, gave a briefing to the members at the regional meeting. And as I mentioned, Global Classrooms, our season has just ended. It's every spring. I don't know how the staff does it. We have an energetic staff that does conferences all over the country and brings these kids together from middle school to high school, and then the college students help support and staff these conferences, and it's really a tremendous experience they're getting. Advocacy remains to be core to everything we do, both in the chapter side and UNA USA. From the chapters, we had an in-district effort in October. You'll remember we asked you to go and meet with your members of Congress in district. Then we had this moment actually at Members' Day with Nita Lowey at the UN. And you see Gillian, who is here as well, right here, both in photo and live here at our conference, who you'll hear from later today. Meeting with your member of Congress is phenomenally important. I will say that meeting with staff is equally important. I wouldn't say that to a member of Congress, but the truth is the staff really makes a lot of the decisions and drives a lot of the direction of the work. So Tuesday, we'll ask you to get up on the Hill. For those of you who have not set your meetings, much of that work has been done, but I'd ask you to check at registration if you don't know when your time is or if you need help with that. We still have a day tomorrow to help finalize those schedules. It's vital that we get up on the Hill. I will say that unlike most years, this is the first time ever that Congress has been out of session when we've had our meetings, so it'll be a tough sell to actually meet with members of the House since they're out of session. Some folks are busy with this little election that's coming up, and so they're not in Washington as much as those of us who like to get up there would like them to be, but they're out in the district, which is another reason we asked you to do district meetings in February. So in October and February, you will hear from us and say, will you meet with your member of Congress? We're not expecting you to meet with your member of Congress twice a year in district, but if you could pick one of those times for your chapter to connect, it really, really helps get the message through that there are voters and constituents watching them, listening, and making sure that they're making, if not the right decision, a decision they will be accountable for. And the last thing before we get to Q&A I wanted to finish up on is our other big announcement, which is UNAUSA.org, our website. A tremendous effort has been put forward by Renee Trainer, our online communications person, as well as the entire staff. And I'm going to do a quick demo here so everyone can get a feeling for this. So the first thing I wanted to show you is that we're actually rolling out today our first chapter pilot website. You recall last summer we talked about making the websites more accessible for those of you who don't have the resources to keep it up, whether it be volunteers, the technical piece of it. And so Denver is one of our pilots. And do we have folks from Denver here? I don't think so. Oh yes, perfect. So they're very pleased, I think, at the transformation of their website. And you'll see that in addition to what we've got in terms of news from what's happening there, they also have a connection to, down here at the bottom under national and global news, to the UNA website. So those chapters who are thinking about this and are interested in this, I would encourage you to talk to Renee and Joe so we can record your interest. Obviously, there's a certain amount of money that we need to invest in making these things happen. Some of that can happen by UNAUSA. Some of that will happen with the chapter, and we'll work one-on-one with you. Many of you have fantastic websites as it is, so we're not, by any stretch of the imagination, mandating new websites, but if it's something you think that we can assist with, that's something we'd like to do. So here is the new UNAUSA website. As I said to the steering committee last night, I was the first person in line to say we didn't have the best website, and so we worked very hard over the last 6 to 9 months to really think about what is the best way to communicate who we are, what we're really about, and what we came up with was really a website that's both accessible for members. So you see in the top right corner it says member login. There's actually resources that are available to members that are not available to the general public. But also, when you hit this page, you'll see, as Jeff said last night, the issues in front of the UN. So yes, we'll talk about UNAUSA, but what we really want to talk about is the UN. That's what engages people. People are passionate about issues. So the website, at least the homepage for sure, has been designed to be accessible to people who don't know about the UN, don't know about UNAUSA, aren't insiders. And what we want them to do is be informed, be involved, and be inspired, as Alma mentioned. And so if you go a little lower on the homepage here, you'll see we have chapter highlights right on the homepage. We have video, social media. We've got our latest tweet at the very bottom there, Model UN resources, and then news. And as you drill into this, you will see that there's a whole range of things. I should scroll down a little bit more because in addition to joining at the top, you can also find a chapter down at the bottom. And so as soon as you go there, you quickly are able to go look up a chapter. And like the old website, you can do it by map, or now you can search by state, or you can just scroll down through the full list here with the contact information. So what we want to do is we want to tout the work of the chapters. Know that there's an access point for members right there on the website, and immediately you can be connected to the UN. I'm not going to click around all of this just to say that you can imagine the amount of work that's been involved to make this happen. We know it probably isn't completely perfect. We turned it on Friday night. So if you find a few things here and there, by all means, let us know. And most importantly, give us your feedback. We want you to encourage people to come to the website so we can grab them, and within one click, you're to the form where you join. So, so please do that. And then the other piece of this is the Interdependent, which was also relaunched on Friday. And many of you know this for many years. It was printed, a highly regarded magazine of the association. A few years ago, went into an online format for various reasons. And we're really trying to own this space as a place where you can find out about the UN. But what struck me when I came to the organization was it had great, thoughtful, in-depth articles about specific UN issues, but it didn't connect me. I found like I had to go to other places to find other pieces of what was going on. So what we've done here on the right side is this is a great synergy with the UN Foundation. UN Wire is a daily email anybody can sign up for, and it'll pop in your inbox. Right now, you can come to the ID, and it is updated in real time. Under News is feeding the UN Wire. So anything you want to know what's happening today in the news with the UN, come to the ID and you can see that. Those of you who follow UN Dispatch, which is more opinion and thoughtful, this is being fed in right here. So you have the op-ed, opinion, a little bit of analysis there. And then as we've always had with the Interdependent, we've got the feature stories that gives you more depth. If you want the issue, if you want to drill down on it, you're going to get that research. So one of the benefits we've also added to this is that it's not open to everyone anymore. So for the first couple weeks, like most news magazines, newspapers, anybody can access the article. But after about a 2-week period, it's going to go behind a member login. And so if you want to look something up, you have to be a member. And so there'll be a place there for them to join. If they hit an article they're really interested in, they'll have to go and join so they can get a login and see that article. So again, we welcome your feedback on this. I hope, again, you'll promote the Interdependent as a source where you can find out every day what's happening at the UN. You can get some thoughtful insight, and you can also dig into the issues. We know model UN teachers often access some of these articles to give some perspective for what's happening as they're teaching it. Again, I won't click through this because I want to leave time for question and answer, but I really encourage you to explore this, and I'm going to close with my all-star team, and I think some of them are they've snuck out of the room, but Mary Frances Wayne, who's the Deputy Executive Editor, please stand. Wave. Troy Wolf, Kelly Siegel, Andrew Roche. Please stand. That's our Global Classrooms team. Deborah Brown, our Human Rights Fellow for this year. You'll hear from in a couple minutes. Joe Catapano and Renee Trainer. Where's Joe and Renee? He's directly there. She is over here. Great. And then team membership. I think you know some of these folks, at least by email for sure. Laura Giroux, our membership director, Tanisha Dow, and Monica Johnson. Tanisha Manning registration. All right. And then Ben Yo, who's our intern at the moment, who is probably definitely at registration. Okay. So with that, I'm going to close. There's so much more that I could talk about and touch on in terms of the national organization. Really, what energizes us are these moments when the staff is in front of the members. We're working with you. I've had the opportunity to travel around the country, some this year. I did a barnstorming week, it seemed like, out in Northern California, where I saw, I think, 7 chapters in 2 or 3 days. Went to a regional meeting. It's so exciting to hear from you directly. And so I would like to close with that before we open for Q&A with, please let us know what you're doing. We have a calendar on the website. We want to put your events on our website, so we're promoting it so people know things are happening about the UN in communities around the country. But we can't do that unless you tell us. We do our best to stalk you online to find out what your chapters are doing, but the best thing is just shoot an email to the membership team, and we'll make sure what you're doing is publicized on the national website, and then we can reference it. We can find out when someone calls us and say, gosh, we'd really like to know, how some chapters do this fundraising stuff. We can connect you to other chapter leaders. So with that, let me pause here. I'm sure I'm over my time, as usual, and open up for questions. There's 2 mics here, or we go right here, up front.
There's your mic.
And then click on the switch is on top.
I think you just talk. It should be fine. They'll hear you. It's on. It's already on.
Oh, okay. Actually, my question has to do with chapter websites. You said there was a cost. Could you tell us how much, please?
It varies. It depends on what the chapter. There's 2 pieces of it. There's implementation cost, and then there's a hosting cost. And so the hosting cost, UNA USA cannot absorb. That's $400 a year. And so if that's something that the chapter is willing to invest, the implementation cost is something I think we want to look at how can we share that depending on the resources of the chapters.
Okay, but can you help us implement a website that can be hosted by somebody who's a whole lot cheaper?
No. Essentially, the answer is no. I know that you can go to GoDaddy or Network Solutions and so forth and get a URL and have a website hosted, 5 pages. What you won't have is all the sort of the interconnectedness. The people who are developing the chapter websites are the ones who developed our website that we just turned on. And so that technology in the back end is really seamless. And so it feeds in. So I'm happy to, without getting into sort of the technical details, which is probably a little bit out of my bailiwick, I would encourage you to talk to Renee about really how it works, what things are on the website now that you can lift and plug in if you are technologically savvy, because we want to encourage that. But the actual chapter websites, unfortunately, it's part of a package with the folks who will do it for us. But Renee and Joe can sort of get you down the specific path.
I saw a question
Yeah,
over here.
please use the microphone and maybe let us know where you're from.
I'm Albert Salosa from the Phoenix chapter. Just as a short feedback, yesterday after arriving in the hotel, I opened the UNA website. I was so surprised. It's so effective. I use the UNA website in my classroom. I teach international politics, and I think this will be more useful, and I think the photographs are so eye-catching. So I just commend you for what you have done, and I will test it during the fall semester. Thank you.
Excellent. Great to know. Thank you.
Hi,
Norma?
Patrick.
Yeah.
I'm Norma Keller from the Center County, Pennsylvania chapter, and I serve on the Executive Committee of the Council of Organizations. And I want to thank you for mentioning the development of area councils of organizations. We have at least 11 chapters now that are seriously looking at it and actually developing plans to implement area councils of organizations. Some of the people that are doing that are here in this audience. And I just wanted to let you know that at the luncheon at the State Department tomorrow, there'll be an opportunity if you're working on an area council or if you'd like to know about area councils to meet with us at lunchtime. Carol and Aaron and I will kind of stand in a place where we'll be pretty obvious, and we encourage any of you who want to sit with other people that are forming area councils or just to find out more information to join us tomorrow. Thank you,
Great.
Patrick.
Thanks, Norma.
Hi, John Quinlan from the Wisconsin Division. It seems like one of the strengths we keep discovering when we get together is the ways that chapters can help and advise each other in terms of best practices and different ways we can share. Could you talk a little bit about some of the mechanisms we have for that, whether it's regional conferences or other ways that we can keep in touch with each other after we leave here? And the concrete thing I wanted to offer on behalf of both our chapter, our division, and our Dane County chapter is that we're doing congressional forums again this fall. And that's something we could probably provide a template and some information. And just off of that, I'm wondering, are there ways that are appropriate for United Nations Association to weigh in and to educate in terms of the upcoming election?
Great. So let me sort of two-part answer to that. First, let me explain how we communicate with you and then we'll sort of get into the how do we share across. So UNA USA publishes once a month the World Bulletin, which is an online email newsletter. It's a chance for you to get a snapshot of what's happening across UNA, at the UN, pulls in from the Interdependent as well as some of the things the foundation does. In addition to that, every 2 weeks we send out the chapter leader update. So if you are an elected official of your chapter or on a board of a chapter, you should be getting an email from us every 2 weeks called the chapter leader update. If you're not, that means your chapter list isn't totally up to date with our database. And again, I would encourage you while you're here, if you can, to talk to the membership staff so we can get all the data correct for your chapter so folks are getting this communication. In addition to that, we send out a monthly advocacy update, and that's a snapshot of what we're doing, looking at with regard to our advocacy agenda. And so everyone should be getting that. If you're not getting these emails, which is the prime way we communicate with membership and the prime way we demonstrate value, we really need to connect you with the membership staff so we can get that squared away. So that's our megaphone, if you will, out to the chapters. Now what we're trying to do, and I think this has happened over the years up and down, is to use the steering committee and the regional reps as another megaphone a little bit closer to the grassroots. And so we were talking last night at the steering committee meeting about how to do that. So the regional reps will be in touch with chapters. The better informed the staff is and the reps are, I think we'll start to see more of this cross-pollination. So there's a responsibility both on the staff and the regional reps to share that up and down the food chain, because it's difficult, I think, as a chapter leader in one part of the country to know that, wow, this, in Wisconsin, and we know this is happening in LA just by happenstance. But through our infrastructure, I think we should be able to facilitate that more. We'll do that some on the website. There used to be, so the toolkits is one of the things we're providing in terms of resources from the UNA USA website. Now, some of that information has been collected from chapters over the years. Some of that's been fine-tuned from other best practices of chapter-based associations around the country. And I think what we want to do is through these forums, face-to-face forums, regional meetings, so there were 3 last year. Tanisha Dow, who's still outside apparently, is really the point person on the staff for organizing regional meetings. So if some regions are highly developed and highly structured and they have their meetings and they don't need any help from us, others haven't had regional meetings, we really want to encourage that, because that's a chance for people who can't travel to DC every year or to New York for Members Day to get together and again realize we're not alone, talk about best practices, share best practices in a little bit more of a geographic way. So we're happy to sort of grease the skids as the national staff by providing some support, resources, potentially speakers, things like that. So, so if you're thinking about a regional meeting, please let Tanisha on the staff know so we can help support your efforts to do that. And we'll do that however much support you want. If you want us to sort of organize the whole thing as much as that's possible from DC, we'll try and do that. But ultimately, getting people there will be the responsibility of the region. So, so we want to use as many means as we have. I think obviously the website is a one-way mean. There used to be a best practices document. We're looking at finding a way to maybe make that a searchable database online potentially. So that's one way you could feed in. You had a great event or a great thing that you've developed, you can feed that in there so other people can search and find it. Face-to-face meetings like regionals and this conference, and then the regional reps being another communication point there. So I think it's something all chapter-based associations struggle with, because everybody, you elect a new president and nobody wants to reinvent the wheel. We want to make that as easy as possible. So, you know, potentially some sort of orientation call or webinar online maybe is something UNA could do. We're open to these ideas. So if there are things, resources that we can create for you, let us know to help cross-pollinate. I don't know if there's another regional rep that wants to comment on how you do that well. I'd welcome at some point.
Patrick, I think it's about time to,
Okay.
we should move.
Wrap it up.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. We'll do that. Good. Very well. Thank you very much.